special session. If you've been in this community for a while, in the last week, we've been celebrating dads because Father's Day was just last Sunday. And so because of that, we have a special dad edition of Mentoring Moments with Oluseye. And so because of that, I brought a special guest, people. This is a very special guest. My husband is here to chat with us today about, dads, the role of dads and thriving as men, as part of our community. Our promise here is that we want to provide resources for the entire family, and dads are definitely not left out. So I have here with me today my amazing husband. His name is Olakunle Ashiru, and I'm going to let him introduce himself to us today, and we'll get started. All right, sir, over to you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Olakunle Ashiru. Pleased to be
sir.
here.
Yes, we know. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so what do I do? Currently, I run a training firm, a startup training firm called Centrain, Center for Training and Education, which is focused on personal and professional development for immigrants in Canada. I'm also currently the president of Dad University Foundation, which is also set up to provide teaching, mentorship, and discipleship resources for men. I have a background in construction as an architect, so I'm currently veering into the safety world as well. I do some safety work. That pretty much summarizes. I have 3 kids.
Excuse me, you are married?
I have a son. Been married. This is what, 18 years.
Did I get it? We're going to be 18 years in December.
18 years. December will be 18 years. And got 3 kids. My boy, who's 16. What do we call him? My man T will be 16.
Yeah.
And then my beauty and pretties will be 14 and 10. Yeah.
Yay! Yes, I know. Time flies, right? It does fly. It seems just like yesterday when we started this family, but here we are today. Thank God for His mercies. Okay, so let's get into today's session. We are talking about dads, fatherhood, and just talking about generally how dads show up, or how should dads show up for their families. What are expectations when it comes to fatherhood? Because I'm a woman, right? So no matter how much I know, I can't be a dad, I can't be a man. And because of that, I want us to hear from a man and from a man's perspective. So let's talk about this issue of showing up as men. Because I know that one of the things that we talk about a lot in society these days is, especially if you live like maybe in the Western world, there's a lot of absenteeism. We see a lot of dads are not present, and the ones who are in the home, like physically in the home, are not really there. Like they're there physically, but they are not present in terms of helping, raising their kids and just being involved with the family. They're not as involved as as they should be. So let's talk about showing up. What will you say when it comes to fatherhood? What will you say should be the ideal way that men show up in terms of being present, being available for their families? What should that look like for them?
That's a pretty tough question, right? Because I would speak from experience.
Yeah.
But also realizing that men are just wired pretty differently. Let me surmise it this way, and that's going to be the foundation of almost every answer I give to your questions, right?
Yeah.
Background and growing up matters a lot. So the experience you had as a kid or as a child, with, in quotes, or without the father, I found out has shaped a lot, if not in a major percentage, of how men view, understand, and see themselves, right? During some of the courses that we take at the discipleship course at Dad University, and the survey sessions, some of the feedback we get from the men, it's obvious that it's a key thing. And so using that to answer your question. So for example, my generation, a lot of us grew up with, in quote, very strict parents. I mean, we all
Yeah.
know that our parents were brought up very strict,
Mm-hmm.
administrators, counselors, some were government workers, civil
Mm-hmm.
workers, but we had really tough parents.
Yeah.
And growing up, right, I was like, wow, why are my parents this hard or this tough? To be honest, we did turn out the better for it. I hope. Majority of us, yeah. And I don't think I would change a lot of that experience.
Mm-hmm.
But however, I remember clearly in one of our sessions, in one of the courses, and I think I can't remember who the guest speaker was. It was either manhood and emotional dysfunction
Mm-hmm.
or oh gosh, fatherhood now, just knowing God. And it was about the orphan spirit and how a lot of men struggle because of
Yeah.
the kind of relationship they had with their earthly fathers.
Mm-hmm.
The relationship you have with your earthly father determines a lot the relationship you're going to have with your heavenly father, right? And
Yes.
maybe we'll talk about that in other questions down the line.
Mm.
So for me, it was a conscious effort to decide that, look, how do I how do I handle this, right?
Mm.
For example, I mean, coming to Canada, where they do sports, recreation like every day of the week. It took me. I know when we came, I dropped you guys, went back to Nigeria for a while before getting back, and then it was in quote, it was a culture shock for me because back
Mm.
home, yes, kids had stuff, but it was at weekends. You
Yeah.
planned soccer activities, track. It was mostly done on weekends. But here, kids finish school, and then the girls are training for cheer. Somebody is doing track. Somebody is doing soccer. I mean, there's no problem if it's once a week. But I mean, let's be practical now. So Remy does soccer 3 or 4 times a week,
Yep.
right? 20 to 30 minutes away. The girls do cheer 2 or 3 times a week. Another one does basketball and track a few times a week. So literally, you're in quote living your life for them, right?
Yep.
After you're
Every day.
done, yeah, it's family.
Yeah.
But you know what I've realized, and when you hear people talk,
Mm.
it's just for the season.
Yeah.
It's just for that point in time. I was talking with my sister-in-law, over the weekend. I think I'm not sure whether you ever had the conversation, Nikki, and she was talking about how her son was now 13 years and how they grow. And I was like, Nikki, you know what? Before you know it, once these kids go to college and university, they are gone.
Yeah.
And as I said that, I remembered how I grew up in Ibadan. I'm an Ibadan boy,
Mm-hmm.
right? Stayed in Ibadan for 17 years of my life, Frame, Jericho, Command. And then as soon as I entered the as soon as I left for the University of Lagos, I never really did go back home.
Yeah. True.
Because it was just stay through the semester, except even for the long, but even the long holidays, you were hardly at home.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as your parents were, as soon as you woke up in the morning, you were out of the house until late at night.
Yeah.
So I think it has to be intentional. The
Mm-hmm.
challenge, like I said again, is we are wired differently. So if
Mm.
it's not something we have men, and I can say this easily because I am not in quote a lot of the outgoing type.
Yeah.
I stopped a lot of that, right? I'm not the giant. Hey, no offense meant,
Yeah.
but well, for me, it's going to work, coming home to my family. I know people who will, after work, go hang out with the boys, and there's nothing
Mm.
wrong with that, right? Go hang
Yeah.
out with the guys, go do this. But if you don't
Mm.
consciously make that time and effort, I think I learned mine forcefully, like I said.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like, hey, the kids have to go for soccer. I ain't doing it. And you say you're not doing it. Somebody has to do it, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
And so whether by force or by hook or by crook or somehow, you just have to do it. Showing up
Mm.
for them. I remember another thing, my kids love when I cook for them. I remember during COVID, we're at home a lot. And then I used to just make this, what was that sandwich, chicken sandwiches, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
have it,
Club sandwich.
club sandwich. We stopped
Yeah.
ourselves. I haven't been able to eat a club sandwich for what months now.
I
I've had so
know.
much of that. Yeah, but I remember making a club sandwich, and then when school resumed, wearing a mask,
Mm-hmm.
and then I made the sandwiches for my girls. I remember them going to school, And they came back and say, you know, their kids, their friends in school are just saying, wow, this is awesome. Who made this for you? And you know, they proudly said, you know, my dad, you know, and that struck a chord with me. I was like, oh yeah, anything I can do to make my kids feel, you know, hip in front of their friends, I'll be willing to. So,
Yeah,
you
I
know, I know
know.
I'm saying a lot, but let me just stop there and say, right, it's the little things, cooking for them, taking them for their, let me say this, it's a main one, especially for the men. We struggle a lot with relationships with our male sons. So I'm sure we all know male sons tend towards their mothers, daughters. What are my male sons? Sons are sons. Sons. I was like, what kind of tautology is that? Male sons.
You know,
It
for a
can
minute, I
be.
was like, I'll go in that point. Like,
Like,
okay,
no, is it
I have
female
to see.
sons?
Is that
No worry.
sons?
Nigerian tautology. Okay, so sons tend towards their moms,
Yeah.
and daughters tend. I mean, it has been like that since the Bible days. So go check the Bible. Look at
Yeah.
Rebecca and what's Isaac's mom's name? The one who laughed, Sarah.
Sarah.
You know, Sarah who laughed. You know, it's always been like that, right?
Yeah.
And so at a point in time, I noticed that I was kind of struggling, you know, with my son and building a relationship. Now, guys, when we came to Canada, I left back to Nigeria for 5 months. Thank God that that God chased me away from Nigeria and brought me back to Canada. That 5 months that I spent away, my son was 13, right?
Yeah.
By the time I came back after 5 months, it was as if we were two different people entirely. And it took me a while for us to get back, you know, into is it normal or appropriate, you know,
Regular. Yeah. Yeah.
regular relationship
Regular
and all,
relationship. Yeah.
right? And it was the same thing with me growing up, right? Yeah, my dad was great. We didn't really form that very strong relationship until I started growing up, started a job, you know, working, started in a family, and then, you know, but, you know, through all those years, it was just, hey, dad, morning, dad, how are you doing? Okay, you're going to school, money for, you know, it was perfunctory.
Perfunctory. Yeah.
That was the word, right? And so I knew that with my son, I had to find a way to connect. And thank God that there was a way. It was just soccer.
Yeah.
I mean, for those of you who know me and who can remember, I was a soccer. I mean, I played soccer, dreamed, slept soccer. So he plays soccer now as well. And so we will go for his games. Now, my son is kind of person, you're like, you want to come for a game? He said, no, I don't want you to come. But he doesn't mean that.
Exactly.
From when he says he doesn't want you to come, that means, hey, man, what are you doing? Show up at my game, man. Because he wants to score goals, and he wants his dad to be there, see him score goals. And I realized that. So as much as possible, I would show up for them. So now when we go for games, we have a lot. So even if we, you know, quarrel on a lot of other things, but once we have a solid ground to start from soccer.
Yeah.
Okay, how's your game? How's your team? So just find that connecting point. Find that connecting. You must find whether it's cooking or taking them for recreation, whatever it is, you must find that connect. Like I said, I'm sure I'm probably answering a lot of questions at once. If you need to interrupt me,
Yeah.
some of
But
the
I mean, it's
major
okay.
things, some of the
I'm
major
learning a lot.
things that form this is I remember clearly. I can't. It's one of these great Nigerian businessmen, entrepreneurs, and all that. He had retired in his 70s or 80s, and he conducted an interview, and they asked him a key question. Right, that's what's one of his regrets. And he said his regrets was not spending enough time with his family and with his kids. This guy
Wow.
he had ran multi-billion naira companies, was
Yeah.
director, board member of millions of, and you could see it in his face that he would gladly trade some of those accomplishments, you know, because he was like, you spend so much time in making money for them, right? And they end up either not liking the money, spending the money recklessly,
Yeah.
and resenting you because they wanted what they wanted was your
You. Yeah.
presence with
Exactly.
you and not the money, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, like I said, that struck a nerve with me, and God helping, I've just tried to try my best.
And that's so profound, you know, because something that you said, kind of like towards the end, was when you're talking about finding a place for connection, you know, with your children, no matter what that looks like. And I think that, like you were saying, it takes a lot of intentionality. Like you have to be deliberate. Someone who's not even looking out for, or who is not even there, how are you going to know what your child likes when you're not present, or you know, not even there? to know what their interests are, so that you can have those conversations with them. Because when the Bible says that we should, teach these laws to our children when we're sitting down, when we're on the road, when we're moving around, it means in casual circumstances, right? Casual moments, not necessarily sit down here, I want to lecture you, right? It's in those moments that we can see what they love and we can do something about it. But if you're not there, how are you going to even know what they love so they can even connect with them on that? So that kind of leads me to my next question, which is about, this balance between a man taking leadership with his family and just being their friend. So, and let me explain that a little bit. So, I see a lot of, I work with women a lot. So I see a lot of people say, oh, the husband, they feel like the husband is not taking a leadership position, like, leading the family when it comes to spirituality and, just taking charge of maybe spiritual growth in the home and things like that. And then there's that leadership position that a man wants to take. And there's the balance between that and being, friends and making connections with his family. So you are this dad who is in leadership position in your family, and you are also a dad who's like a friend, a buddy that they can laugh with, joke with, and just be casual with. How do we have that balance so that the men can take leadership, but at the same time not lording it over, their children in a way that exasperates, like the Bible calls it, exasperating your family with your leadership style and things like that? How do we create that balance, especially for people, like for a Black community, for example? We're raised in that way, it's a strong hand all the time. How do we come to terms with this generation and being leaders versus building connection? If you get what I mean.
Yeah, I get, and I think the answer will vary across cultures and countries and where you are, right?
Yeah.
For those who are still back home, in Africa, where there's still a lot of respect, and even though, regardless of that, kids of nowadays across board, based on discussions I've had with peers, friends and families, they're just different, right?
Mm-hmm.
This Gen Z is just a different generation. I never in my wildest dreams thought I would ever tell a child to go do something and they'll ask me why.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Every time that crops up, I just think back to my childhood. I'm just imagining your dad or your mom telling you to go do something and you're saying why. It's not even possible, right? I mean,
Exactly.
can't even
Your mouth will
imagine.
hook.
Yeah, it's not even possible. But hey, that is what it is now, and you had better
Mm-hmm.
live with it.
Yeah.
Had so many instances of parents who have lost their kids that way,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
I think it was well, it's a well-known saying. They
Mm-hmm.
use the carrot and the stick method,
Yeah.
right? And you're just going to learn how to balance between the two.
Mm-hmm.
Again, like I said, depending on the culture. Here in Canada, you
Mm.
can't just rise up and spank kids. Well, you can technically, right?
Mm.
You depending on how you, but it's by law. It's not allowed to some certain extent.
Yeah.
But even at that, even if it's allowed, you find out that
Mm-hmm.
in those days when we were spanked or caned,
Mm.
it was a different generation entirely. Now it doesn't. I'm not sure how much it helps, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not
Yeah.
sure how much it helps.
Mm.
This issue of leadership in the home. So leadership cuts across various strata, right? So
Mm.
spiritual leadership,
Mm.
emotional leadership, leadership as a man,
Mm.
right, taking care of the home, um, leadership in terms of personality and development.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you become? How do
Yeah.
you train them to become, men,
Mm-hmm.
right? And for me, what I would just say is, these kids mirror what you do. And that's it. You can say you're the man of the house. You can threaten that you're the man of the house. You can tell them to do. But if they don't see you relate that with your wife, your
Yeah.
spouse,
Mm.
it's just hearsay. And I think that's the simplest way to put
Mm.
it.
Mm.
Um, I remember when we were going to get married and we had all of these beautiful plans, say stuff we're going to do when we get married.
Mm-hmm.
It was and it still is tough, but I think we've tried to keep some of those things.
Yeah.
So yes, we do argue, but the kids know that when we have arguments, we make up quickly on
Mm-hmm.
time.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have very violent arguments. We don't shout at each other,
Exactly.
stuff like that, right? Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's the one odd things where I just let off or you let off and all that, but they know more
Mm.
often it's about us, laughing and carrying each other and just messing around the house.
Mm.
I'm sure the kids, they are used to that by now. They know us.
Exactly. Like, this
This
one's
is what
decided again.
so on the spiritual aspect, that's a
Mm.
tough one,
Mm.
because for men who if you don't have again, back to what I said, relationship you have with your father determines relationship you have with God.
Mm.
Relationship you have with God determines relationship you have with your children.
The children, yeah.
Never ending cycle, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you don't have fellowship with God, if you don't
Mm.
have a quiet time with God, I'll give you a story. And it was something I put in my book. If you remember
Mm.
the book, 1 Week in Prayer,
Yeah.
opening scene
Mm.
was as a kid. For those of you who might not know, I grew up in a Muslim home. I was born Muslim, did convert at age 17. But my mom was an Alaja. My mom was one of the most, if there's a word called wonderfulest, and I miss her. She died,
Yeah.
12 years ago, right? But my mom, school administrator, disciplinarian, but my mom, if there was one word to describe my mom, prayer warrior,
Mm.
the Islamic way. When I was young, I suffered a bit from insomnia. I struggled to sleep. So oftentimes I wake up in the middle of the night or just stand up, not being able to sleep, and go to the living room. My mom was always there on her prayer mat,
Mm-hmm.
counting her rosaries and just, going. Oftentimes I ask myself, man, and interesting, you never know that those things
Mm.
are subconsciously ingrained in your head,
Mm.
in you,
Yeah. Yeah.
and all that. Nowadays, I take Fridays if I'm around, if I'm around at home, I won't travel for work. I take Fridays as my vigil night in quotes.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
So my son, for example, wants to watch TV Friday to Saturday morning, which is what we all did at his age as kids. He's 16, I mean. But he knows that Friday night he's not coming into the living room. He
Yeah.
has just taken it and look, let me just leave. If he's around on Friday night, is why? Because Friday night, and at times he comes to test me. I know because I'm there, I'm praying. He comes down at 2 a.m. He looks at me like, this man, you still there here, right? But that's the way it is. And they know that I'm not doing it to show off. It's just me. It's just what I do, just to so. And and I realized that the same way I used to see my mom do that, that was what gave me the strength and energy.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Yeah.
nowadays, seemingly, the children might seem as if, they don't want to pray, but hey, we do devotion every morning or night. Okay, during
Yeah.
school, during
Exactly.
school sessions, we do it every morning, and then we read the Bible every night. At times, I ask myself, are these things working? Are they? But hey, you can't do something continuously and it won't rub off on them,
Yep.
right? And I know
Yeah.
that the God who says train up a child the way he should go and sees all
Mm.
things, whether we
Mm.
like it, when they start going, I never believed so many things. I'm going and I'm getting emotional now. In a few years, we'll clock a golden age.
Mm.
Things these children will leave pretty
Yeah.
much in a few years' time. These children are gone. And
Mm-hmm.
you're like, you better utilize that time now, right?
Mm.
In fact, let me put it this way: they are past the age, say by age 8, a child is formed. So
Mm-hmm.
anything you're doing now is just extra. So all the ones you're doing now is Jara.
Mm-hmm. You're reinforcing it. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just they are 10, 14, and 16 now. So it's just to show them that this. So they see me every morning. I do my after devotion. I do my devotions. I pray. I worship. I watch. I watch soccer a lot, but they know they see me. I'm listening to gospel inspirational music. I listen to other stuff. I watch other stuff, but they know where my key focus is at
Yeah.
times. So without having to say a lot or force them, and you can't force them,
Mm.
right? You can't force them, and that's delicate. Um, you might feel as if they want to throw another part. You do your
Mm.
bit and let God do the rest. I think
Mm.
I've come to that realization. I
Mm-hmm.
still worry. You still worry that look, when these kids go off to school and all that, what will happen? Will they take after your ways? But
Mm-hmm.
permit me to put in our language, Olorun Shobaika, God,
That's
can you
a
translate that?
wicked God.
God is a merciful God, right?
Yeah.
If you've spent so much invested, that's the word, you've invested time and energy in their lives, by God's grace, they will turn out for the good. So just
Amen.
what's the word? Mirror it, and then
Yeah. So good. I love what you said about the fact that we show. We show more than tell, right? You just leave it out. Children catch, more often than not, they catch. So it's not all your speeches and everything. If we're not living the lives that we are saying they should live, then they're going to know that we're hypocrites, right? One thing
sorry to interject.
What did you say?
I said sorry to interject. I just
Yeah.
remembered, and sorry that I really called. I won't do that, right?
Yeah, that's okay.
Yesterday, I was just looking, as it was as you spoke that it came to my mind. I think it was the Winlows. They do these short skits. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But it was on Twitter or something. It was a video. They brought a 10-year-old girl. The teacher brought a 10-year-old girl home. She was caught kissing a classmate, and the mother was like, "Wow, you want to disgrace me? I'm a deacon in church. I'm a pastor. I was the first to be ordained. I was there. I'm this. I'm that." Took the child, started with it. And then as she was doing that, I think maybe as a vision or in a dream, an angel, someone appears to the mom and says, "Why are you blaming the child?" And the angel does a vision, takes a picture of the mother when she's sitting on the kind of programs she watches. Always romantically inclined programs where they're always kissing and cuddling and fondling, and the daughter is always there, right beside her, watching the same programs. And so, in the same vein, if you do that, they will follow. If you do whatever you do, so just to corroborate that.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. Show. Whatever we're showing, whatever we're doing, is what our children are going to catch more than anything. And I think that the part when the Bible says that train up a child in the way they should go, and when they are old, they will not depart from it. It means that there's an anchor that binds them to what they have been taught. We're sowing seeds, right, into their life with all the things we're doing. And that's how fathers should show up. Leadership is not just telling, is showing, leading by example. Like John Maxwell would say, leadership is influence. How much influence do you have with your children? How much influence do you have with them? If you are not connected to them, if you're not deliberately living out that life, they're going to say, okay, they'll do it when you're there, but will they really see that something that they should be their default setting, even when we're not there, right? And that's such a big deal. And it kind of leads me to, to another question when we're talking about the fact that, we model to our children, and it's around the issue of faith, when it comes to disciplining or correcting our children and things like that. And it's about prayer, praying for our children, and all that, praying for our children, because we're talking about showing, not so much as telling. How do we ensure that we are praying, covering them in prayer? Because a lot of times we see women, gathering together, or we're praying for our children, or sometimes mothers are praying mothers, all of that. But we hardly hear about those gatherings, those groups. Thank God for what that university is doing, and all of that. But we hardly hear about those groups. So what will be your own charge, I would say, to dads to say, yeah, this is how we should show up when it comes to prayer for our children. This is the model, that we should display when it comes to praying for our children, because it's not something that we hear often. It's always the moms. Mom good at praying. Yeah. And all that. Yeah, it is showing.
What's that? What does that one say?
This one,
yeah.
Power of praying parents.
Good. What does the disappearing one say?
Power of a praying husband.
Yep. Great question. One of the best feedbacks we get from our dad university course is anytime I mention to them during the introduction what I do as a dad, that every night when I'm around, that before I go, when I'm going to bed, I go to the front of my children's rooms and I just pray for them. I might not necessarily stand in front of their room, but stand and just pray for them and make declarations. That always strikes a chord with majority of it. They always come back to say that's one of the things that they promise to go back and do, or that they have started doing, right? That just doing that. And it's funny you say that, because you are what's the word now? Originator of that. You know who? So it's part of the things I also put in my book. So I remember clearly you giving me Power of a Praying Husband so many years back. And I'm like, why is she giving me this? I just tossed it in one of our shelves and left it there. And then 2 years later, I go pick up the book and I'm like, oh my God, why did I not pick this up sooner enough? And that's also because I read a lot. I don't know, this might be a challenge for those of you who reading is not one of their things. You just need to find a way, right?
Yep. There's audio now. There's Audible. There's there are many ways now. Yeah, to listen. If you don't want to read.
And so instead of, I noticed I used to struggle on, what to pray for you and how to pray for you and the kids, because it was the same, what do you want to pray for you? God bless my wife, God bless my children, God make, and all that. But just getting books, and these two books that I showed, I've been using them for how many years now, right? 10 at the least.
Maybe 16 years.
Yeah,
or 15 years.
that's why I said 10 at the least. I mean, that's being on the safe side, 10 at the least. And every night, if I can, and I'm not too tired, and yes, I know we blame him for everything. Yes, and the devil is not trying his usual, but it's his fault anyway. So I pick up Power of a Praying Husband has how many, almost 20 or 30 prayers for your wife.
Yeah.
Right. So if you prayed every one of that for a whole year, you can be praying for your wife like 6 times. Praying for her power, praying, it's wonderful. And then the Power of a Praying Parent is one of the best, if not the best book I've seen about praying for your children. There's nothing you want to pray for your child that is not.
It's not there. Exactly.
I'm not advertising book, but even if I do, it's not my book. It's somebody. But yes, I'm advertising. Go get it. Right? It has the best prayers anywhere I've ever seen. Well, not that I've read a lot, but that I've ever seen. We pray everything. Their friendships, growing up, who they will marry in future, the food they eat, kind of friends they keep, addictions, whether sexual, whether whatever. It has, and that's what I just do. So every night, like I said, when I remember and when I can, that's why I put it here. You can see that I easily stretched. I'm sitting at my work table. Right?
Yeah.
I put it there on purpose. I put it by my bedside so that every night before I pray or if I do something, I just pick it. And guys, it's the prayers there will take only 1 or 2 minutes. I promise you. Which is what makes it very easy, right?
Yep.
And see, listen to how bad the devil is. And I don't want this to be about the devil. To pray for your kids and your wife, right? It takes 2 minutes each, 5 minutes. Believe me, at times, I want to pick up the books and pray, and somebody says you're tired, go and sleep, and I actually go to bed. Can you imagine? At times, 5 minutes, I will just be loitering around.
Yeah.
How much do you spend when you're scrolling through Twitter? I spend at times an hour a day doing that.
Yeah.
And then 5 minutes to pray for your wife and kids. And one voice there is telling you that
you're tired. Go to bed.
And at times you succumb. And that's when I know that's how powerful prayer is. So, my dear babe, that's the short answer, right?
Yeah, and what you said kind of just leads me to the fact that it's just about intentionality. Just being intentional. I have a reminder that goes up on my phone every day, 8 a.m. And so every day there's a different prayer. Like same way I use the 1 week in prayer format, right? I use 1 week in prayer format, right? Because of your book of how you wrote 1 week in prayer. So that's what I do. So Mondays I'm praying for my husband. Tuesdays I'm praying for my children. Wednesdays I'm praying for my mentors and spiritual leaders. Duh.
I don't see it. I don't see those books. Okay.
Wednesdays I'm praying for spiritual leaders.
You see my own books. You know where my own books are. I don't see your own books.
I've written my own books, right? So my book that I wrote. I wrote my book, and I use those.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Every time you speak, something crops up in my head. And guys, listen, we form subconscious habits in us that we don't know and we don't realize why we do it.
Yeah.
As you spoke, I realize now why I can't stop praying, especially for my children. Especially knowing the background that you come from and what you've been through. and
Yeah.
not wanting your kids to go through so many things. I
Yeah.
think it was Rick Warren or somebody who wrote it and said there was a man, a missionary or a pastor or someone who went to God and was complaining that every time he prays to God, that he will pray for so almost months and years, before his prayer gets answered. But look at this guy, once he prays, he gets answered. Once he prays, his prayers get answered. And I think the Lord's response was that guy you're talking about, his father was a pastor. His grandfather was a pastor. His great grandfather was a pastor. I think the reason why I mentioned Rick Warren was that's Rick Warren is like that. He comes from a lineage of pastors, and so it's not necessarily, it wasn't necessarily his prayers, but he's been taken from a prayer bank,
Movements of prayers over the years.
generations
Yeah.
of prayer bank, right? It says, but
Mm.
your father was a herbalist, your great
Mm.
grandfather was a this and that and that. So do you know the
How many
layers,
battles you have to fight first of all?
of built up, what's the word now? Resistance. Remember when the Bible says, and Daniel prayed, and the prince of Persia withheld his response.
Resisted,
those things are, whether we like to believe it or not, those things are real, right? And so in my mind, because I know, because I've had a discussion with the Lord too, especially some of the things I went through, and like, look, Lord, why is it so tough praying and getting, and so I just want to make sure that I've built up enough prayer bank that I'm not making them lazy. They will have to do their own bits, but at least it's like an inheritance, right?
Exactly. You give them a platform.
Think about this: zero inheritance and $100 million, $1 million inheritance. Which would you choose? Which would you pick?
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. I don't know anybody who would take. So at least let them have prayer inheritance.
So good.
Prayer inheritance.
Wow.
They can easily go to their banks, and know. Well, they might not even know. That's it. They don't even know.
They're working for them.
The Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit have recorded it that your dad laid down these prayer principles, and that's what you can. So I think that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, that is so good. And like what I was saying about the fact that that I was talking about the alarm on my phone and how it is that every day it pops up and so I'm praying for this person, I'm praying for this person, I'm praying for this person. And we'll talk. So because I kind of like hear someone who's watching this. I'm like, I'm so busy, I don't have time. Like my husband was saying, 5 minutes. Hello.
That's
5 minutes of consistency is
it.
better than 1 hour that you do once a year.
That's it.
So if you have 5 minutes of your day and set an alarm and say, pray for my children now. And to make it easy for you, maybe you already have prompts on your phone that you save there, right? And just immediately pick it out, quickly look through it, pray for your children immediately. And that's why Families Are Rising is here. We have resources upon resources. If you go to our website, you'll find them there. If you download our app on whether it's on iOS or on Android, you find them there. Prayers upon prayers. For whether it's you're a dad or a mom or children, teenagers, you find resources there because we want to help you. We want to help you, make it easier for you to find resources, right? So if you go there, you download something, right?
I just did a quick calculation. At times I like numbers. I just did a quick calculation. 5 minutes of prayer every day, 365, gives you 1,825 minutes a year, which gives you 30 divided by 60 minutes. That gives you 30 hours
of prayer.
Of prayer.
That's better than nothing.
Day of prayer.
Yeah.
Right? And of course, you can't stand the whole day and pray. So just doing this 5, it adds up. That's it.
It adds up. Definitely adds up. That's still better, like we said. It's an investment. It's better. It's like putting money in the bank, like we say. $5 here, $2 here. At the end of the year, you have something better than zero, right?
Yep.
Because 0 times 0, 1 million times 0 is still zero.
Zero.
It's still zero, but 1 times 1 million is 1 million. So you're better off doing something, no matter how little, every day, investing them into your child's life. And it kind of brings me to this point of maybe there's somebody watching this right now who is like feeling discouraged, like, I don't know, my children are older. I don't know what to do. Like, I feel like I've lost it. I feel like I've lost ground. I feel discouraged. I don't even know where to start. What would be your own response to that kind of question? Somebody who is having that thought in their heart, like, I've lost so much time. Where do I start from? What would be your thoughts for someone like that?
Seriously,
Now.
seriously, the book has prayer points for children who have grown up and left the house.
Yep.
That's why I raised it up. Right. That's
Yeah.
why I said it's an all-encompassing. It's one of the best I've seen around.
Yeah.
So if you haven't done it, like I said, God is not a wicked God. He's a merciful God, and He sees our hearts.
Yeah.
Once you have the determination to start, pick up the book or any other one you can get and start to pray for them. That's it. Start. You never know what these prayers do and what they're doing. That's it. Just start to pray for them.
Just start from where you are. That's it.
There you
No
are.
matter how much time you think you've lost, it's better to start today. Yeah.
Listen, we all have regrets. I have regrets. At times I think about stuff. Oh, if only I had, what would I have done at this? But at the same time I'm having regrets, I'm also thinking, okay, now what's next? Get off the pity party couch and how do we move on from it? You have to move on with life. That's it. Yeah,
Exactly. You can't stay there forever. But now is a good time to start. Now is a good time to start. Right.
Today is always the best day to start.
Yep, exactly. Better than nothing, and all that. And that's like, so we've talked a lot about parenting, raising children, being fathers and all of that. And I think I want to go to an important aspect of manhood, of being a man and just being a person generally, which is because I see a lot of women say this thing like, I'm sure if you look around you, you see all this, oh, this something funding for women, oh, this for women, oh, this for the girl child, oh, this for this, oh, this for that. And like I said earlier, that we don't see too many of those things for men. So and that begs the question of, as a man, because honestly, if you think about it, if I want to lead by example, then I must be that kind of man that is worthy of being emulated, right? If I want my children to emulate me, then I must be worthy of emulation. And so we have women complaining that, oh, I'm going for all these personal development programs. I don't see my own husband or the men in my life putting as much effort into their own personal development. And we see them going to work every day. Yeah, go to work every day. But in terms of growing personally, like personal growth, expanding their minds and things like that, we see a lot of men lagging behind the women in that area. And so I know that that's your own field, that's your own area of expertise. What will be your own take on men investing in personal development? What should that look like for men? And just address that problem for a little bit. Yep.
Of course, it still boils down to all what we've been discussing, because again, like I said, much as I don't like to say it, they say boys will be boys, men will be men, right? And I always go to the Bible, right? Even at that, if you read the story of the patriarchs and all the great men in the Bible, every one of them struggled. Not every one of them. Some of them struggled one way or the other, right?
Yeah.
And if you don't have the drive to need to do, so what is expected of a man? The traditional way, provide for your family, right?
Yeah.
Work, raise, provide for your family. And once you've done that, you've done the bit. But is that really it? That's not what the Bible. And if you go through what biblically the Bible expects, the first question or challenge is, how many people know what the Bible expects or asks of men? Like it says in Ephesians, husbands, love your wives. And then in Colossians, parents, just like you said, your children, train them and do not exasperate them or drive them to frustration and all that. Development, spiritual development, personal and professional development. Personal and professional one is always easy because it's to make more money.
Exactly. You don't
do that. Yes, that one is pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Except you just want to live an ordinary basic life, right? But pretty much personal and professional for that, that's almost it goes without saying, right? But the spiritual one that's the key one. And how many people even know the states that they are? Talk less of now saying, oh, I need to do something, right? Hopefully we will try. There will come a number of. I realized when I was, setting up, that university, right, that there was, just like you said, there was nothing, at least where we stay, in these environments, there was nothing for men. But even if you check globally, very few.
Mm.
And again, I can say this, even when we're doing our programs for that university, see, we're wired differently. Women, people can sit down and gist and talk and have fun and all that. For guys, if you better do it and do it
In and
very
out.
good.
In and out.
Yeah, in and out, 1 hour, 2 hours. Our courses were never more than 2 hours. And even
Mm-hmm.
at 2 hours at times, God help us. But mostly because we had very experienced guest
Mm.
mentors, so who are
Mm.
engaging, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you're going to provide anything for a man, it had better be engaging. You had
Mm-hmm.
better have return on investment for them, know,
Exactly.
ROI, yeah, for
How
them.
does it add to the bottom line?
Yeah, but what's the bottom line? So,
Mm.
I mean, that's like I said, there's no straightforward answer to that.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
As wives, you could pray and encourage
Mm-hmm.
the men.
Yeah.
Pray and encourage, like I said. They're not going to, some might not get it in 1 week, some might not
Mm.
get it in 1 day, some might not even get it in 1 year, but
Mm.
just don't give up, right? I know from some of my discussions with men, like I said, all these things boils down to background and how you were raised. A lot
Yeah.
of them, that's just how I think of some of the things I do now, and I subconsciously I know that's just what I saw growing up, and
Mm.
that's how I thought it should be done,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Again, maybe not so, right? And even from that, that's what quite a number of guys said. The way they
Mm.
grew up and saw some of these things. That's,
Mm.
I mean, I remember back home when I used to travel for work, traveling to one of those southern somewhere states, and I met someone. I went with a colleague, and then we went to meet his friend just to have drinks, normal drinks, at a restaurant and all that. And he offered me alcohol, and I said no, it was good. He said, he was shocked. Was What do I mean? I said, no, I don't drink.
I don't
He
drink.
said, I don't drink. He said, no, that's
That's not possible.
there's no man, every
Every
man
man drinks.
drinks and womanizes. And he said it with such
So much
certainty,
confidence.
confidence. And I realized that's that, and you could see it. My father, that's what he grew up, that's what he sees, that's what he
Mm.
knows. So he couldn't believe that but I
There's one
knew
man
that
on earth.
now, caveat, I did drink at some point in time. I just stopped,
Mm.
At there was a point where I did drink, but for me personally, I wasn't getting any benefits from it. If I drank a bottle, I
Apart
had
from
headache.
headache.
I drank a bottle, I had headache for 2 days. So why would I want to kill myself? So that one, I didn't even need any spiritual person to tell me that, my body
It's
wasn't
not
cut
good
out
for
for
you.
that. Yes, it's not good for it. You tried with cigarettes, you were coughing, I was like, so that was just it. So like I said, for some of them, it's what they've seen. And again, subconscious, trying to remove what has been ingrained in
Mm-hmm.
in someone over the years.
Mm.
That's a battle, I gotta tell you.
Mm. 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 And that's it. A lot of us had, like you said, so many things that we need to unlearn, uncover, remove before we can even, have those conversations. And for a lot of people that are raised in the traditional sense of, oh, this is how a man should be like, oh, this is it. Or some that were even raised without some men, no examples to follow. That's even harder, right? For some people in some instances. So I hear you on that. It's going to take a lot of personal discipline, personal decision and commitment to say, this is how I want to be. This is the kind of man that I want to be like. And because of that, I'm going to invest in my life and invest in my own personal growth, for myself and for my family. And that is such a big deal. And I think that we can start to bring this to a close. If you are listening or watching and you have any questions, please put them in the chat, in the comments, and of course we'll take them. We'll look through them and we'll take some of those questions. If you're watching the replay as well, put your questions there and we'll come back and look through some of those questions and answer them, and all of that. So in closing, I think the last question that I have is, in closing, let's talk a little bit about what would be like your own general advice, when it comes to men, fathers, as a father or as a husband or just as a man generally. What would be your last words to encourage and cheer the men on?
I just put something in the chat box. I
Mm-hmm.
remember at the onset I forgot.
Yeah.
That's the title of a book. That
Mm.
is the best book I have ever read in life on manhood.
Finishing Strong by
Finishing
Steve
strong. I'm
Farrar.
not sure whether the spelling of the Farah is right.
Yeah, I think that's it. Yep,
Yeah.
Steve Farrar, Finishing Strong. Such
I
a
think
good book.
I read that book first time in 2003, about 20 years ago.
So good.
I probably need to go and get it and read it again. But
Mm-hmm.
for you guys, I mean, reading that, the lessons in that book are still in my head.
Mm.
And I think I can really encourage, any man out there, just go. We tell them in that university classes as well to go get that book.
Mm.
It's a spiritual book, and it just talks about the principles, foundations of being a man from a biblical perspective, not
Mm.
biblical, practical
Mm.
perspective. That book
Yeah.
had so much impact on my life. I mean, much
Mm-hmm.
more than I could start telling you, do this, do this, do that, right? If you
Mm.
can, get a copy of that book and
Mm.
read it. It's
Mm.
evergreen. It never changes.
Mm. That's so good.
It's just be a praying man. Again,
Mm.
it's tough. Again, it's difficult, right? Again, it can be challenging. Um, and I do pray for those of you who are struggling in these areas, right? But just be a praying man. Even
Mm.
if you didn't have anybody to show you or to
Mm.
take from, we can always learn, and it's never too late.
Yes, sir.
Just
Never too late.
be a praying husband, father.
So
Yeah.
good.
Close
It's
with
never
that.
too late. Never too late. Thank you so much for coming today to talk to us about, to talk to dads. And I also learned a lot, even if it was for dads, I learned a lot, because even as a person, learned a lot about parenting, about how to show up for my family the more, and how much impact what we're doing is making, and we don't even realize every single day. So before we go, last ask of you will be to please pray for us generally here, whether it's the men, the women. Just pray for us, please, before we go.
Father, we thank you for today. Thank you for everyone, listening to this program today.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Daddy, for your word says the entrance of your word brings light, brings
Mm-hmm.
understanding. Um, just as the same way the two disciples on the road to Emmaus had a discussion and you were with them. Father, when we have discussions and conversations with this, we don't know how far they will go. I do pray that as many as will watch and listen, Father, then in one way or the other, in a way that only you can, their lives will be transformed. Whatever lessons need, are learned, or whatever people will take from this that will help them improve their lives, their homes, their families, their relationships with you